There comes a moment, quiet, unannounced, when you wake up and realize the world doesn't hold the same charge it once did. The music feels dull. The goals you once chased feel like dust in your hands. The people, the plans, even the passions, they feel distant now, like echoes of a version of you that no longer fits. It's not depression, it's not failure, it's not burnout. It's something far more sacred. This is the quiet before divine realignment. This is the whisper before the awakening. And yes, it feels like a loss. But it's not a collapse. It's a cosmic signal. You're not fading, you're being recalibrated. This moment, this eerie stillness, only visits a chosen few. You've entered the sacred in-between, the divine suspension where nothing feels real anymore because what used to be real was a lie your soul no longer consents to live inside. You've outgrown the scripts. The mask itched too long. You're no longer able to force your way into a role that never fit your spirit. And that discomfort you feel, that heaviness, that ache, it's not emptiness. It's clarity. It's your soul waking up from sedation. When your life begins to feel dull, when even the brightest lights don't thrill you anymore, it's because your internal compass has stopped lying. The distractions no longer distract. The entertainments no longer entertain. The old ambitions no longer inspire because they were never truly yours. They were borrowed identities, costumes passed down by culture, and you wore them well. You played the part with excellence. But something shifted. Something within you refuses to perform now. And so, the world misreads you. People whisper, "What happened to them?" But the real question is, what truth finally happened within them? You haven't lost yourself. You've lost the illusion of who you thought you had to be to belong. And that loss, though silent, is sacred. It's a funeral for falsehood. You're grieving the scaffolding that once held your life in place, but that scaffolding was made of expectations, of projections, of survival mode ambition. Now that you're no longer surviving, your soul is asking to live. Not just exist, live. And that requires a full dismantling of the architecture that was never built for your expansion in the first place. So, if you feel like you're floating in the void, like nothing excites you, like everything feels muted, that's not a problem. That's the portal. That's the sign it's beginning. Your nervous system is no longer responsive to false stimuli. The old tricks don't work anymore. You can't hustle your way through this part. You can't motivate your way past it. You're not broken. You're sacredly paused. The stillness isn't punishment. It's presence. For the first time, you are fully present with yourself without performance, without pretense, without needing to chase the next thing to feel real. And that level of presence doesn't feel peaceful at first. It feels raw. It feels disorienting. Because there's no mask left to hide behind, no ambition to pretend you're fine, no goal to soothe the silence. This is your soul unplugging from the simulation. It feels like indifference, but it's integrity. It feels like nothingness, but it's the birthplace of everything true. You're not empty. You're finally real. And yes, people will misunderstand. They'll try to diagnose you, to fix you, to nudge you back into your old spark. But you are not returning to a fire that was burning you. You are not climbing back into a cage because it once looked like success. You are not apologizing for your awakening. You are not here to play the part. You are here to walk the path. And this motionless moment is part of the sacred rhythm. You've entered the quiet between identities. You've outgrown the role, but the new name hasn't been spoken yet. So be still, be soft, be patient with the fog. The clarity you crave will not arrive in force. It will arrive as a whisper, a flicker, a sacred nudge. And it won't ask you to perform. It will ask you to listen. It will not demand movement. It will offer meaning. And in that moment, the ache will make sense. The silence will bloom into direction. The heaviness will reveal itself as the weight of old layers shedding from your spirit. You are not disconnected from life. You are finally disconnected from what was never truly yours. This is the sign. This is the beginning. This is holy ground, disguised as disinterest. You keep wondering why you feel so far away from everything. You're still showing up, still speaking, still surrounded by people, but the energy behind it, it's different now. You laugh, but it feels delayed. You respond, but it feels rehearsed. You smile, but your spirit doesn't rise with it. It's not depression, it's not apathy, it's not weakness. It's spiritual withdrawal from what was false. What you're feeling is not absence, it's honesty. You're not broken, you're breaking through. You're not disengaged, you're detaching. You're not disconnected from life, you're unplugging from illusion. There's a grief to this part of the journey no one talks about. The grief of becoming, of releasing the self you once were, of realizing you can't even pretend to be that version of you anymore. Not because you hate them, but because you know you've gone too far to return. That version of you was built from momentum, built from habit, built from need, built from chasing, fixing, achieving. But something inside you stopped negotiating, stopped compromising with roles that weren't aligned, stopped craving validation from places that never nourished you. And now the simulation is glitching, and you're watching it all from a space between. No one prepares you for this part. No one tells you that spiritual growth can mimic emotional death. Because that's what this feels like. A quiet death. A fading of interest. A loss of hunger for things that once consumed your every thought. But hear this clearly. You are not empty. You are unmasked. You're not lazy. You're in energetic withdrawal. You're not disoriented. You're being deprogrammed. What used to push you forward was pressure. What used to define you was desire. But now those things no longer move you because you've seen through them. You've glimpsed something deeper. A life that doesn't revolve around needing to be someone just to feel like someone. And in that awakening, there is discomfort, there is silence, there is resistance. Because everything in this world teaches us to move fast, to keep going even when nothing feels right, to fill the silence with effort, to force a smile, to snap out of it, to get back to the version of ourselves that others could understand. But your soul refuses now. It will not go backward to be digestible. It will not shrink again just to be recognized. You are not who you were, and you're not yet who you're becoming. You are the in-between, the bridge, the cocoon, the sacred pause. And in this pause, the ego panics, because it can't measure stillness, can't monetize it, can't show it off, can't explain it to others in a way that earns applause. So it calls it a breakdown. But this isn't a breakdown. It's a refusal to perform, to strive, to chase. This is the body's wisdom overriding the mind's programming. This is your nervous system whispering, "Stop. It's time to feel what's real." The mind will scream, "You're wasting time. You're falling behind. You should be doing more. But those aren't your thoughts. They're withdrawal symptoms from certainty. You see, society doesn't reward stillness. It rewards visibility. And right now, you've disappeared from the narratives that once defined you. That scares people. And sometimes, it scares you too. But the truest parts of your becoming are not made for the spotlight. They are forged in the shadows, in the slowness, in the ache of unknowing. This is not stagnation. This is sacred reconstruction. What feels like nothing is actually everything real beginning to grow. The soul speaks in silence, and you are finally quiet enough to hear it. Let yourself listen. Let yourself drift without direction. Let yourself weep if you need to. Let yourself grieve the self that doesn't serve you anymore. This part is not supposed to make sense. It's supposed to undo what made false sense. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just no longer willing to feel excitement for things that were never aligned. And that is not the end. It is the spark of becoming untouchable, of becoming whole, of returning to the sacred center of you. This isn't you fading. It's the false fuel burning off. This is not death. It's your divine return. Pause. Take a breath. You're not late. You're not lost. You're not falling behind. You're just no longer moved by the forces that used to dictate your pace. This isn't dysfunction. This is divine reconfiguration. You used to be carried by fear. The fear of not being enough, not being seen, not being relevant, not being approved of. And fear is a powerful fuel. Until it isn't. Until it burns out. Until your nervous system simply stops responding to the pressure that once defined your momentum. And now? Now you can't fake it. Now you can't force it. Now you can't make yourself care about things that once consumed your entire being. Because those desires, those hungers, were survival tactics. They were borrowed fires. They were scripted ambitions passed down to keep you chasing a version of yourself you thought you needed to become. But you've outgrown that version, and now the shell feels tight. The old path feels brittle. The noise that used to energize you now feels like static. And the truth is, you can't go back. So the mind does what it's been trained to do. It tries to fix it, tries to solve the problem of your stillness, tries to manufacture meaning where life has asked you to sit quietly with none. But this isn't a problem. This is the sacred pause between worlds. You are not standing still. You are standing at the threshold of the unknown, a holy place where the old tools stop working because the new tools haven't yet arrived. And yes, that space is terrifying because it has no metrics, no titles, no explanations, no applause, nothing to point to and say, "This is who I am." You are becoming, but the shape has not yet formed. This is not failure. This is the first time you are living without performance. And it feels like disorientation because the only stability you've ever known was tied to movement. But movement that isn't honest is not progress. It's escape. And now you are done escaping. So you sit. You ache. You let the questions come. Why can't I feel what I used to feel? Why don't my goals move me anymore? Why does everything feel heavy when it used to feel exciting? Because you're not meant to want from the same place anymore. Because your system is refining. Because your spirit has upgraded its sensitivity. And now, only truth will do. That's why everything that felt familiar now feels foreign. That's why motivation vanished, because it was built on old incentive systems that your soul has outgrown. You used to move because you were afraid. You used to chase because you were empty. You used to strive because you thought you had to earn your existence. But now, the striving has gone silent, and with it, the mask has fallen. And in its place, there is space. And in that space, there is fear. And within that fear, there is invitation. An invitation to let life reveal itself to you without the need to control it. An invitation to stop performing for a world that doesn't know how to reward presence. An invitation to redefine success as alignment, not applause. You're not disconnected from life. You're disconnected from noise, from cycles, from old stories that demanded you keep playing a part just to stay valid. And the withdrawal from those stories? It feels like silence. It feels like a blank page, like a frozen screen, like standing in a room where the lights have gone out and no one remembered to tell you why. But trust this, the darkness is not void. It is womb. It is soil. It is the environment of birth. And what's being born? The you that doesn't need to chase meaning because you are meaning. The you that doesn't need to perform purpose because you embody it. But you can't access that version by striving. You access it by letting go, by no longer resisting the rest your soul has asked for, by no longer fighting to be the person you outgrew months ago, by no longer squeezing yourself into timelines that were never yours. This pause is not laziness, it's calibration. It's not the end of movement, it's the end of being moved by what isn't true. And when the time comes, when your spirit has rested enough, when your mind has stopped clawing for the next distraction, when your body has caught up with your truth, you won't have to try. You won't have to force. You won't have to convince yourself to want again. The desire will return, but this time, it will rise from still waters, from peace, from clarity, from truth. And it will pull you, not because you're running from something, but because your path is finally aligned. And when that moment comes, you will remember this one. You will look back on the stillness and whisper, that was the moment everything changed. If you're still here, still breathing through this silence, still watching life from the edge instead of the center, then you've already crossed a line few ever reach. Not a breakdown, not a collapse, but a crossing. The old life still exists around you, the same routines, the same places, even the same faces, but you can no longer step into it the way you once did. Something closed, quietly, completely, and it's not coming back. That space you're in now, the space between the self you've released and the one still forming, is sacred. This is not confusion, this is transition. This is not delay, this is redesign. The mind wants labels. It wants to explain this ache, wrap words around it, narrate a comeback story the world will cheer for. But there is no comeback. Because you're not coming back, you're moving forward into a life that doesn't require you to abandon yourself again. From the outside, it may look like nothing is happening, but everything is. Inside, the old motives are dissolving, the false fuel is gone, the persona has cracked open, and there's no script left to perform. And that's why it hurts. Not because you're failing, but because you're feeling it all, maybe for the first time without a filter. You're no longer numb. You're no longer sedated by striving. You're no longer running from the void, because now you've seen it, and you didn't die. In fact, you met yourself in it. You saw what remained when all labels were stripped. You stood face to face with the silence and didn't shatter. You wept, you paused, you questioned, you breathed, and you stayed. You stayed through the stillness. You stayed through the ache. You stayed when nothing made sense. And that staying is everything. Because this phase is not visited by the weak. It's not visited by the complacent. It's not for those who need applause to feel real. It visits those who are ready. Ready to stop lying to themselves. Ready to stop outsourcing their worth. Ready to become unshakable, not through perfection, but through presence. You are not passionless. You are no longer moved by the artificial. And in a world addicted to distraction, that is a holy rebellion. So if you still feel lost, heavy, uninspired, don't rush. What's forming in you is not meant to move fast. It's meant to move true. Your system is recalibrating. Your compass is being remagnetized, not toward noise, but toward knowing. Soon, you will begin to feel it. Not all at once, but in small, sacred ways. A flicker of desire, not to chase, but to create. A whisper of clarity, not loud, but undeniable. A subtle pull towards something that feels honest. And it won't ask you to perform. It will feel like home, not a place, a state. You'll rise from the quiet, not with a roar, but with peace. A stillness that doesn't demand, doesn't prove, just is. You'll walk lighter, not because you have less to carry, but because you're no longer carrying what was never yours. You'll speak less, not from withdrawal, but because your words now come from the soul, not survival. You'll desire again, but the desires will be different, pure, anchored, real. And when the world asks, "Where have you been?" you may not know how to answer, because the truth is, you haven't gone anywhere. You've simply arrived, fully, finally. You've arrived in the present, not to prove, not to perform, but to live. No longer pulled by pressure, no longer bribed by validation, no longer pretending. You are the truth now, and your life is becoming a reflection of it. Not overnight, not in a spectacle, but steadily, silently, surely. So let this part close. Let the morning complete. Let the breath return without needing to chase. Let the desire awaken without needing to push. You are no longer who you were, and thank God for that. Because what's ahead won't require the masks you used to wear. It will require your presence, your truth, your stillness. There is a phase after the awakening, a space beyond the shedding. It doesn't announce itself, it simply arrives, not as
clarity, but as capacity.
And that's where you are now. You're not just moving through the shift, you've become the space that holds the shift. You're no longer asking, "When will this end?" You're beginning to whisper, "What is this making room for?" That change is subtle, but it's everything. Because now, you're no longer running from the in-between. You're standing inside it, not with clenched fists, but with open hands. This is what maturity looks like on a soul level. Not performance, not perfection, but a willingness to live without a script for a while, to be rewritten by something greater than fear. This is when divine timing begins to bloom, not in the form of sudden breakthroughs or emotional fireworks, but in the quiet realization that your nervous system no longer flinches at the idea of not knowing. You can sit with the fog now. You can breathe through the silence. You can feel the ache and not panic. That is power. That is spiritual adulthood. That is what few ever reach. Because most escape this moment. They run back into noise. They grab onto urgency. They try to fix what doesn't need fixing, just feeling. But you stayed. You listened. You endured. And because you did, something rare is happening. Your soul is no longer shaped by survival. It's being sculpted by surrender. You're not healing for the sake of returning to who you were. You're expanding for the sake of becoming someone you've never met. Someone whose peace is not performative, whose purpose isn't purchased by pain, whose clarity doesn't arrive in panic, but in permission. Permission to exist in the quiet. Permission to want less. Permission to need differently. Permission to live from the inside out. And in this space, this strange, still, sacred space, you'll begin to feel the next truth rising. It won't come in words. It won't come in plans. It won't even feel like ambition. It will feel like recognition. Like remembering something you never knew you forgot. A gentle, magnetic pull, not toward achievement, but toward alignment. You'll start noticing it in the little things, the way your body breathes more easily when you stop trying to prove, the way your spirit quiets when you stop trying to explain, the way your energy returns when you stop carrying people's expectations as your truth. You'll stop fighting for clarity because now you know. Clarity isn't forced. It arrives when noise dissolves. You'll stop asking what's next, because now you know what's next doesn't matter when you're rooted in what's real. This is not you re-entering life. This is life re-entering you. And when it does, it will find room, because you made space, because you let go, because you didn't abandon the stillness when it no longer made sense. You honored the sacred void. You didn't fill it. You didn't rush it. You didn't medicate it with false momentum. You sat inside the chrysalis,
not knowing when your wings would form,
not knowing what shape they would take, not knowing what sky you'd rise into, but trusting that wings would come. That's what this moment is. A soul with wings still wet, a spirit adjusting to new gravity, a heart that no longer beats for borrowed timelines. You're not behind, you're being born, again and again and again, until the self that emerges no longer requires pain to feel awake, until stillness feels like home, until peace doesn't feel like punishment, until you realize you were never meant to go back. You were never meant to remain understandable. You were meant to evolve beyond recognition. You are the transmission now. You are the portal. You are the embodied truth that once had no words. This is the beginning, still, and the beginning never ends. What happens after the silence? After the stillness teaches you to stop performing? After the ache softens, not because the questions are answered, but because you stopped needing answers to feel whole? You begin to glow differently, not with intensity, but with integrity, not with urgency, but with presence. You stop chasing alignment because you realize you are alignment. You stop seeking truth because it now speaks from within your own still breath. This is the moment where becoming shifts into embodiment, where insight becomes structure, where everything you survived now becomes your frequency, and no one around you may notice, because this kind of transformation doesn't come with a spotlight. It doesn't scream, it doesn't post updates, it doesn't ask for applause. It just is. It becomes the quiet gravity you walk with, a new foundation beneath your feet, not built on effort, but essence, not built on plans, but on presence. You're no longer animated by the fear of not becoming enough. You've remembered. You already are. You're no longer trying to create a future to escape your present, because your present has finally become inhabitable. You no longer carry urgency like armor. You carry peace like a key. And that peace, it's not lightness without weight. It's not joy without depth. It's not happiness without history. It is earned. It is weathered. It is whole. You are no longer seeking healing from the world. You are offering healing to it, simply by being someone who didn't abandon themselves in the dark. And now? Now your life begins to shift, not through striving, but through resonance. You'll notice it in the conversations you no longer entertain, in the goals that no longer pull at you, in the spaces that feel off, not because they're wrong, but because they don't match your vibration anymore. You'll notice it in your body, how it no longer tenses when nothing is happening, how it no longer panics when you don't have a plan, how it no longer needs to perform peace, because it is peace. You'll notice it in your words, how you say less but speak more truly, how silence no longer feels like failure, but like faith. And above all, you'll notice it in your energy, how you no longer enter rooms seeking permission, but offering presence. This is when everything changes. But nothing looks different on the surface, and that's okay, because this isn't about the surface anymore. This is about soul. This is about the architecture of your unseen world, the scaffolding of your spirit, the sacred structure of your life force. The world may still expect the old you, but the old you is no longer available. Because you stopped abandoning your stillness, you stopped betraying your boundaries, you stopped pretending your fire wasn't real. Now, you honor the pause, you listen to the edge, you no longer resist the recalibration. This is you, choosing alignment over urgency, depth over speed, essence over image. This is your system no longer leaking energy to what is not true. This is divine efficiency, divine discernment, divine timing now working through you, not around you. You've stopped being a seeker. You've become a signal, a frequency that calls in what matches your truth, not your performance, not your wounds, not your fear, but your truth. This isn't about what's next anymore. It's about what's now. Not the next breakthrough, not the next goal, not the next external sign that you're doing it right, but the sacred awareness that you don't need to be doing anything at all to be in the right. Because you are the shift now. Your life no longer begins when the momentum returns. It begins now, in this breath, in this body, in this soul that finally belongs to itself. You are no longer chasing your timeline. You are walking with it. You are no longer following a path. You are the path. And the path will open where your truth walks.